tuners and the righteous rebels. For those of you who are unaccustomed, or this is maybe your first time watching or hearing the righteous live and unscripted, it's part of the, oh my gosh, I have so many things running through my head. It's part of the righteous rebels group that Leah and I have put together for you. You can go and re-listen on the webpage, which is therighteousrebels.com, or you can join the group over on Facebook, which is The Righteous Rebels group on Facebook. That one you'll have to click the little blue button or whatever color it is, just like a little pink that says join, and then we will let you into the group. So for those of you who are unaware of what Live Unscripted is all about, it's an extension of a podcast that I started years ago called Living Courageously Exposed, where I took the opportunity or had the opportunity to just do something crazy. And I reached out to people and I asked a question. And then I interviewed random people across the world that I had no idea who they are. We typically had they respond to the question. We had a 15-minute conversation. And if I loved the energy or the vibe, I would say, hey, do you want to come on this show? And it was an amazing way to get started. I didn't love all the production stuff. And so now we just do these live and unscripted conversations, which is what's happening today. So thank you for joining us from the Righteous Rebels page, YouTube, or LinkedIn, wherever you're at. Welcome. Thank you for sharing your time with us today, especially because we know that you could be in a lot of other places. Before we get going too far, we just want to remind you of some of the really cool products that we have here at Righteous Rebels. And the first one is the My Revelations Journal that Leah and I created in November. This thing is awesome. You can get it on Amazon. We'll put that link in the comments. Leah has also written 2 books, Living with Dirty Glasses and Remember When. Both of these are amazing. And you all can also get those on Amazon. We'll make sure that you have the link for those. We have a lot of really cool things in the works. I just realized I don't think I have. Hold on. This is one of those things of I would be really wise to like clean my desk. In August, we're putting together a river trip where you can come and join us for 6 amazing energy-filled fantasticness on the main Salmon River. Those dates are August 14th through 19th. You can go to therighteousrebels.com to find out more about that. We have 19 seats available and would love to have you, if you're a female, you be in one of those seats. Men, we're working on getting something together for you as well. That is a Raise Your Vibe life and leadership retreat. We're going to talk about spiritual things. We're going to talk about leadership things. We're going to talk about life things. We're going to do everything we can to help you recognize the amazingness that you already are. Whew. Okay. I think that's all the housekeeping things. So here's how we start at Live and Unscripted. Is I love to, because as you can see, I get on and I'm all just ramped up and ready to go. And I love just taking a moment where I can let go of what's already happened in the day, and I can let go of what I think is going to happen in the day, and I can just get really present right here, right now. And today, I'm just going to invite you to do the breathing exercise in a way that you can feel the expansion of your rib cage through your chest and through your rib cage. So let it expand like this way and this way. So you're just going to breathe in a way. So what that's going to do, one, it's going to slow down your breathing and bring your heart back into a more coherent state. It's going to allow your brain to slow down so that you can be present and actually hear what we're saying and maybe have inspiration tap into your brain or into your heart. If you have questions, feel free to type those in and I will do my best to get to those. I don't always see them. But if I don't see them now, I'll answer them later. And just brings you in a space where you can lean into this conversation that Cory and I are about to have. And I welcome you leaning into that space, because all of our combined energies is what creates the magic that will take place here today. So the breathing is done with closed eyes or a downward gaze, whichever is most comfortable for you. And today Again, just focus on feeling your rib cage expand around your heart and around your lungs. So often we spend so much time like hunched over or taking really shallow breaths, and then all of those muscles that help move the rib cage and that protect the organs inside get tight, and then we don't actually have room for all of those organs to function as they were designed to function. And so just taking a few moments to kind of, I would encourage you to do this every day. Just lay in bed. Sometimes it's the easiest way to do it. But just put your hand on your heart, put it on your rib cage, and just feel it expand and start loosening up all of those muscles and loosening up your brain and slowing down your heart. So, with that, we're going to take about 60 seconds. So, closed eyes or downward gaze. I'm going to close my eyes and just feel yourself expand through your, so breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth in that expansion. Again, see if you can intentionally breathe deep enough to feel your rib cage expand around your lungs and around your heart. As you're doing that, just notice what happens inside your body. Any sensations that you may feel. Any thoughts that may come to your mind. Sometimes it can even feel a little bit unnerving. And if that's the case, just continue to breathe through it. Let's just take a few more deep breaths. Really expanding that rib cage. One more big deep breath. Oh, awesome. Thank you for joining me in that today. I would love to hear what that experience is like for you. For me, when I started doing breathing work, and even still, when I get into it, I can find myself in places of feeling what I would maybe describe um, as anxiousness. Like my body's like, wait, what are you doing to me? What are you asking me to do? Like we've been doing this thing together for so long, and we've been doing it in a way that the body takes control, that when I'm actually taking control of the breathing and getting into some of the deeper emotions and deeperness in the body, some of the feelings and things that are stored there, it wants to fight me back a little bit. And so if that is your experience, just know that it's okay and that it's normal until it's not, because your body will start to respond, your heart will start to respond, your brain will start to respond. And so I would love to just hear what your experience was. Did it allow you to come into that space of calm? Did you have any extra thoughts? Did you notice anything in your body that you hadn't earlier in the day? So with that, let's kick this thing off. I am so excited to bring our guest to you today. His name is Cory Miller. He's somebody who I've known his entire life. He's known me for most of mine. And I affectionately know this man as Chief Alotta-bull. And because this man knows how to talk. But it's more than just talk. He sees things and he feels life, and he puts it into a story and a tale that makes you want to listen. And I have really enjoyed watching him over probably the last 7 years, especially as he talks about his man cub. And maybe we'll get some of those stories in here. And if not, then you know what? We'll just have him on again. But what I love about this man is he just goes through life in his own way. Like he's learned to listen to himself. He's gone against the grain of a lot of things that he was taught growing up in order to find his own way. He's incredible he works with animals and is incredible at it. And you know what? I know him to be a good dad and just a good man outright, and a good husband. There's probably more, we actually haven't lived in close proximity. He's my cousin. He's my first cousin. I love this kid, but we haven't really lived in close proximity with each other for most of our lives. And so our interactions have been brief. As kids, they were super fun. Cory, I'm just going to go ahead and bring you on. And so I'm super excited to bring to you today, Mr. Cory Miller, who currently resides in Washington. Cory, and anything else? Like tell our friends, like, I know you work with animals and birds and things, and we'll probably get into that, but anything else you want to say before we get going?
Yeah, not all. I mean, I guess not.
I do, but I don't.
You touched around on most of it. Yeah, you got it. You're done.
Sweet. That was easy. Okay, so let's just jump in then and ask our first question.
Yeah.
Are you ready? You're sitting down, so
Sure.
that's a good sign. What were you like as a kid, and what did you want? I guess it's two questions. And what did you want to be when you grew up?
Gosh, right into the deep end.
Mm-hmm. Look,
I don't. I mean, atta girl. I think as a kid, I was a kid. I mean, as a kid, like, what are we as kids? I mean, I was kind of just in my own world most of the time, kind of doing my own thing, kind of, just kind of into a little bit of everything. It's, my dad used to tease me a lot and say, well, you only like that because it's different. Oh, you like that because it's, and maybe he's right.
Right.
But that's kind of it. As a kid, like, what did I want to be as a kid? As a kid, like, I have the coolest memories as a kid about hanging around. Like, it seems weird. Like, as a kid, like, what I wanted to be was an old guy. Like, like I wanted to be an old guy, right? Because, like, old guys know everything.
True.
And, I had some cool old guy kind of mentors, idols to look up to. I mean, both of my granddads were just super cool. There's a lot of other old guys that I hung around with that just kind of knew stuff. So, in my youthful ignorance, I wanted to be an old guy, and now that I'm getting closer to being an old guy, I kind of want to go back to being a young guy, but that's
right.
kind of, that's kind of how it goes, I guess.
Tell me like what these old, in wanting to be an old guy, like what were some of the things that maybe you wanted to aspire to that was like, ooh, they made being an old guy look amazing, or like something you wanted to be?
Like as a kid, I always wanted to be, basically I wanted to be in a different century, I always wanted to be, they call it the big out there, the cowboy and the living out away from everybody. And kind of a lot of these old guys seemed like they had found something, like they had some sort of key. They had some sort of, I don't know, like otherworldly knowledge, like they just kind of had these little pearls of wisdom that, I didn't have. And then when they shared them with me, after I set my ego aside and kind of thought about these little pearls that they'd sent me, then I think about it and go, gosh, like that was such an easy answer. Like, why do I have to live to be 65 to figure that out? Like, that seems so freaking simple.
Right.
So, these old guys just kind of had this innate, this something that they had gained that just seemed like, gosh, these old guys have an easy button.
Well, and don't you think, like, as a kid, I mean, we have no idea what it takes to get from where we're at as a kid to where those dudes are at, that it appears to come so easy. Like, so I remember having probably similar feelings. Hello, words. In a few ways, but maybe not like you, just thinking, wow, there were people in my life that made that made being an adult look really intriguing. And then there were others that's like,
Right.
never, never.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm guessing that what you're saying is you had the people in your life who, one, it must have like triggered some of your interests, which okay, I'm like, there's 10 questions. How do I ask this question? When did you find yourself? So you wanted to be an old guy, but when did you find yourself becoming interested in the things that you do now? Did that happen in junior high? Did that happen in high school? Like, when did you start recognizing, like, okay, these old guys had to go through some things in order to be where they're at now as old guys? They were probably only like 30 or 40, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's funny because I think about it like looking up to my dad, like, man, he just had these answers, and and then my son asks me questions, and I'm like, dude, how would I know? Like, how would I have the answer for that? And I think, man, I sure expected my dad to have them.
Yeah.
Like the interests and stuff, a lot of them kind of feel like they've just always been there. I mean, like like anything that involves horses, right? Like, I mean, I really don't have a lot of memories that don't involve a horse.
Well, that was
somewhere, or at least horse adjacent, I mean,
right.
And that kind of, the horses, everybody that's into horses, it seems like, has a dog.
A dog.
And it seems like 50% of those dogs are out of control coyotes. So, getting into the dog training, one kind of just parlayed into the other. And really the horses parlayed into falconry.
The horses did?
Yeah, as a kid, Dad managed these big Arabian breeding farms.
Right.
And so we used to get, we'd get magazines like what was one of them, like the Arabian Times. And you'd see these pictures or these paintings of like this Bedouin on this horse in this vast nothingness of desert with a falcon. And, as a kid, I was like, man, that's got to be cool to like, there's these birds way up in the heavens with all this power and speed, and to be able to call that down and be able to like work with it, like, wouldn't that be cool? And then when I married Kate, I kind of got re-interested in it through the internet and just kind of saw some things and did a little research on it. And I showed some videos to Kate and said, hey, gosh, doesn't this looks so cool. Like, this is something I'd kind of want to get into, but, I don't know if I can. And she looked at me in the way she does and said, well, why don't you? So, almost a decade later, here we are.
I love it. So how old were you when you started? I mean, granted, like you said, horses and whatnot have been a part of your life. I mean, our grandpa was an amazing horse trainer.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember being 5 years old. I still live I'm probably 2 miles from the barn, from our grandparents' house. And I remember being 5 years old. They lived literally over the river and through the woods at that point. Like, our town ended at a certain point, and then it was just farm fields clear up to their house on the hill, where when you looked out the window, you saw just the vastness of the city and clear out into the desert. And I remember standing there as a 5-year-old and watching Grandpa and the uncles and probably friends come in and build that ginormous, domed barn, and all of the memories of being young and being around the horses and being afraid and learning how to not be afraid and playing on the equipment and feeding them and so I don't have the same experience by way of actually working with them, but being around them was pretty magical. But I think part of that makes me emotional, was watching Grandpa around them and watching your dad around them, and just how they could speak to them, and they had this beautiful like communication and dance. And from the time I was little, I just thought that was so amazing. Holy shnikey. And so, like, when did you kind of step into that role for yourself? Like, I remember you being young and going and working at the is it King's Ranch? I think you and Zachary.
No, it was Deseret.
Deseret, yes. Like, was that one of your first experiences of doing something like that? And what did you do? Like, when did you really make this a part of your existence? And what called you to it?
I don't. All right, let's do the first part first, or it's gonna get tangled.
Do it.
So Deseret, like that at that time that I went to Deseret.
How old were you?
18.
Okay, that's what I remember you being young.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't do any of the big graduation parties I graduated high school, slammed my 4Runner full of my stuff and hit the road.
Okay.
Deseret I am so grateful that Granddad opened that door for me and that I was able to have that experience. And now that there's some time and distance between, where I'm at now and that experience then.
Right.
No, I can look at that experience and say, that experience, just, life in general, that experience was a serious kick in the nuts. And it was a kick in the nuts that needed to happen.
Okay. I
went down there full of ego.
Okay.
Well, I went down there full of ego. Somehow I tripped and fell down and left all of my work ethic somewhere else. And I kind of went to Deseret and made a real ass of myself.
Okay.
It was at the time, you don't see it. It's all wrapped up in ego. I'll screw these guys. I don't need them, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't take long before it kind of came to me like I got that job on my name. They didn't know me from Adam. They had no reason to tolerate the immense amount of crap that I dealt out while I was there. They had no reason to tolerate that.
Right.
Now, having been a foreman and worked at different places, if I'd had that young kid come onto my crew, I'd have fired him so fast it'd make his head spin.
Gotcha.
And it was that moving forward and being able to look back on that and have that really profound kind of embarrassing moment where I realized, like, I got that on my granddad's good name and I pissed it away. And that's kind of where that's kind of what started the whole idea of this is a generational gift. And it's something that ought to be treated with a level of respect. And that's kind of what kickstarted actually pursuing it. Like actually, and it's a maturity thing. It's learning that, God gave you 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth. Sometimes you need to shut up and pay attention and learn a little something, because in the big scheme of things, you don't know crap, because there's all these old guys that already know everything you're about to say. So maybe you should be quiet and listen for a minute, which for me, that took a lot of practice. And it's still something that, it's something that I still work on.
Sure. So having this, being able to look back and be like, wow, I was a seriously 18-year-old jackass, really.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What are the things that you were able to, like, was there a turning point on the ranch? Like, what were some of the things that you were able to actually mature in while you were there? Were you able to build relationships, or did that happen after you left the ranch and you're able to look back and go, oh.
It started to happen right before I left.
Okay.
Because it's when I say I left, they were very gracious in not firing me.
Okay. Thank you, ranch.
They suggested that perhaps I should find somewhere else to be until I grow up.
Okay.
And they did it with the premise of, if we fire you, you're not hireable back.
Right. How did that feel knowing you came in with you say I came in just full of ego. How was that experience for you of someone coming to you and saying that? Like, did it bump up against it, or were you kind of like setting aside some of that ego by like what was that experience for you?
That was really deflating. I mean, it was really deflating. There were
So eye-opening, like, whoa.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's if your ego was a balloon, I mean, it was poke fizz, it's gone for a moment. At 18 it comes back, but
right, quickly.
you're right. But there were a couple of guys that I rode with every day. We were on a work crew that was just the three of us every day, and they were a couple of guys that I looked up to, and they had made comments about, God, you're really talented at this. You're really good at this. Like, God, like, how do you get your horse to do that? How did you get that done? And instead of being humble, it sort of inflated the ego more.
Gotcha.
Right. And then, right before I kind of was asked to go find something else to do, Aaron was his name, sat me down one day and he said, you're really cool when you shut up. And I got mad too. I was pissed.
Sure.
Like, what do you mean? And he said, you're a really cool guy when you come to work. He said, other than that, he's like, you really need to figure out that you're enough without all the talking.
Ooh.
Without all the bravado, without all the, you're really cool without that. He said, but you need to figure out how to get by without that before you're ready to come back and work with men. And I mean, that comment will stick with me forever. I mean, and at the time I was so pissed.
Sure.
I was how could you categorize me like that? Like, I'm technically an adult. You're asking me to help you with your horse constantly. Like, how could you say something like that to me? And then later, I look back and I have actually a couple of times I've tried to track him down so I could tell him, hey, thank you. Like, you put up with a lot of shit from a really arrogant kid. And imparting what I thought was a shot. I thought you were taking a shot at me as I was leaving.
Sure.
No,
sure.
Like that was some solid advice that you gave me. And I wish I could find him and go back and thank him for it. And it as I've gotten older, I try and reference those guys when I deal with younger guys. And my first instinct is to kind of dress them down, tell them what a screw up they are, and send them on their way because I don't have time for their nonsense.
Right.
But I constantly get referred. I remember there was a couple of guys that put up with you. There were a couple of guys that, yeah, they kicked you in the nuts. It's a kick in the nuts you needed. So, I kind of try and use that to temper my grumpiness. My wife will tell you that I'm a grump. So
you might come by it natural. I don't even know if it's a grump. Some of that
I don't even as a kid I always thought how Grandpa's so Grandpa's grumpy.
It was seriousness. Like everything was just serious.
That's what it was, too. Like now that I'm older, it wasn't so much as grumpy as he had an agenda. He had things to do. He had a purpose to what he was doing, and you were either going to contribute or get out of the way.
Get out of the way, right? Yep. Follow the rules or
right.
Find out what happens
get
if you don't.
Get off of it. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if I remember correctly, you were there with Zachary.
Yes.
Did you guys do?
We went down together.
Did you do much together? Zachary's another cousin of ours. Are you guys the same age?
Yeah, I think we're pretty close. I think we're within a few months.
Did you get to work with him much?
We lived together, actually. We shared a house.
Okay, cool.
We shared a house. We worked in different units, but we shared a house together while we were down there.
Gotcha. You guys are you're like same personality, but different personality. How was that experience?
Oh God, it was educational. You know, I mean, as a kid, right? Like that's the first time you lived with anybody that isn't family,
right?
right? Like immediate, you know, like immediate family. You know, so for me, like it was a learning curve, like learning things like this person is not obligated to put up with your shit, right? Like they don't have to.
Yeah.
And you know, Zach was somebody like growing up, like Zach, I really admired Zach growing up. And still, you know, to this day, Zach is somebody that I admire.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, Zach is just intelligent and he's got drive and he's got, you know, he's got things to like, he's got some admirable traits. And that was another one of those like life lesson learning things, you know, is looking back, I was not a good roommate. And it was, you know what, honestly, I was too embarrassed to even contact Zach for a long time.
Really?
Long time.
Oh,
yeah.
I can see that though. Like, I think many of us would do that with anybody, let alone someone who's a family member.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, you know, and it was, it was actually on Facebook. I saw Zach, you know, somewhere on Facebook and just sent him a message and he's like, hey, dude, like, you know, for what it's worth, some odd years later, man, I'm sorry that was, you know, that was kind of a messed up deal I put you in. And, you know, and he commented back, hey, don't worry about it. We were kids, we're family, you know, it's done, it's over, it's gone.
That's cool. Well, I would imagine had the tables been turned, you probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's as we get older, man, I mean, you know, Zach is, you know, he's one of the cousins that I ran around with when we were in, you know, we came to Idaho and,
Yeah.
you know, I love that guy. You know, we were kids, we were stupid, we did stupid stuff. You know, life goes on. And we had, honestly, Zach and I, we had a lot of fun together while we were there too. Like we had a lot of fun.
That's cool. Okay, so moving forward, you have the lessons from the ranch, and you maybe have I don't know that you necessarily have maturity, but you definitely have some like things to think about of where do I go next, and how do you take that experience from the ranch and move forward in a way that is productive, high energy, without repeating same crappy patterns. Like, how did that experience inform what you do or what you did into your like early 20s and then on to where you're at now?
Well, it's I appreciate that you assumed that there was a plan or formulation of any kind from that point forward, because there certainly was not. It's really, it was until I was probably almost 30. Like my life plan was just beat your head into the wall until you pass out from frustration and then go beat your head into another wall. You know, it was
That kind of hurts.
Yeah, over and over again. You know, I got married at 21. Had my son, my oldest son, at 21. And at that point, you know, I was, I'm gonna ride horses forever. I don't need to have any plans. I don't need to like think forward to this. As long as I've got a barn full of horses to ride and stuff to do, I don't need to worry about anything.
Sure.
And God, that was a horrible plan. I mean, that was horrible.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Because in your family, was education a priority or something that was encouraged? Or because in mine, and I will admit, like, I may not be remembering it correctly, but in my family, I don't recall education after high school being something that was really given a lot of weight or really encouraged to go and do, you know, which can then again inform us, help us make a plan. Sometimes, not really. I mean, I don't use my degree.
No, to my parents' credit, I mean, they always encourage, like, hey, like, you know, do better academically. You know, you'll have more options.
Gotcha.
You know, you might want to go to college. You might want to go do whatever. You know, my parents, they did things like they had me start. I mean, I started playing the violin at like, I don't know, it was like 6, 7 years old, something like that.
I forgot about that.
They exposed me to, you know, all kinds of classical music and, you know, and I was really determined, like, I'll do it because I enjoy it. Like, anything musical, I'm down.
Thank
But
you,
like,
family.
I always, yeah, and I always was telling my dad, like, oh, I'm just going to be a horseshoer. Oh, I'm just going to do this. And he fervently tried to talk me out of it. I mean, he really, I mean, we had a lot of conversations about, I know you think this is what you want to do, but maybe you should look further into the future. There's, you're going to beat your body up. There's all this different stuff that you're not seeing at this age because you're too young, and at that point, at that age, I just, I can't see you. I can't hear you. This is what I'm doing.
Right.
And then there came a point where he decided that I really was determined to be a moron. And maybe he had better teach me a trade so I've got a fighting
support
chance.
you in that.
Exactly, and I'm glad he did. It's something I'm physically not able to do anymore, but it's something I'm really proud of. And they did, they encouraged me to, like, hey, have a plan, look forward. And I really was just having none of it. Like, I didn't want to hear about your plans. I don't want to hear about all this stuff. I'm going to go live my life and do my thing. And
how many kids did you have at that point?
So I had Wyatt at 21. I had Shay at 22 or 23. It was like 18 months later. Terry came 7 years after that. And then there was a divorce. And then I got remarried. And now we have the man cub.
No man cub.
And man cub was, that was out of left field. I was absolutely certain I was done doing that stuff, but life had other plans.
Right. While you were trying to figure out if you had plans.
Yeah, right. The plans were already laid. I just didn't know it yet.
So, man, I'm just trying to think where to go with this. I just keep asking. I keep hearing, ask him where he wants to go with this.
Right? Like, I don't, where I want to go. Like, right now, basically, I've come to that point where I can pretty comfortably accept that I don't know where I want to go. I can pretty comfortably accept that I don't have, like, as a career, so to speak, I don't really have a solid plan. I just don't. And there are people like, God bless my wife. I mean, that woman, school, college, doctorate. I mean, she is organized, educated, got things to do. There's a plan. She's doing stuff. God bless her, because she keeps the train from coming off the tracks. But that's not really me. Like, I'm a dopamine addict. That's kind of what I do. I chase stuff that just I like to do. It's just stuff. I had a moment.
I think that runs in the family.
It does. It does. I absolutely think it does. And I did for a decade, I did the work multiple jobs. I did the, stay in a really bad marriage. Like, it was just bad for everybody. Because that's, gosh, I got to stay here and I got to do this, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And, and there came a moment where I just said, hey, I'm done. I'm done.
Question. Why did you think you needed to stay? Like, that's what you were supposed to do?
Well, it's not like supposed to do. May not be the right terminology.
But you know what? It may, because I think there may be some people out there who are in some things that they maybe aren't best suited for them, and they're in them because they're supposed to be in them. They're supposed to figure it out.
I did. I mean, I served time in that prison sentence. Well, bottom line, I served that time in the prison sentence for my kids.
Okay.
Because I thought that's what I could do to best, service them.
Sure.
And that's bad thinking. That's not, you know, looking back on it, that wasn't a great plan. You know, because I look back at it and you know, my oldest two kids, you know, they're old enough now. They've moved out. They have their own relationships. They, you know, they do stuff and they make decisions. And I think, God, that's dumb. Like, why are you doing that? You retard. Why would you do that? But then I look at the example that, you know, the example that was right in front of them while they were growing up was their dad doing the same dumb stuff. And it's, you know, I mean, in no way do I regret my kids at all. Like
Sure.
being a dad is probably the coolest thing that I do. I regret that example because it for a long time, it really changed who I was, like how I presented to the world. It changed
Sure.
my attitude. It changed my perspective. It changed, you know, I mean, you know, if we're all being honest, I was doing a lot of dumb stuff then. You know, I was partying, I was drinking, I was running around, I was doing stupid stuff. And it was all in the name of like, I'll do what I want to do. You know, you do what you want to do over there.
Okay.
I'm going to do what I want to do over here.
Right there. I'll do what I want to do. Where does that come from for you? Because I think there's a lot of people out there who have that probably same sentiment, but maybe for different reasons, maybe for similar reasons. So for you, where does that come from? I'll do what I want to do. Like, and it's the rebel piece. But sometimes we take it you know, here at Righteous Rebels, it's about learning how to come home and how to listen to yourself and those things. And I think people get this idea of what rebel is, that it's this like, you know, they're the bad kids or the ones out causing trouble. And it's not about that, although it can be.
Yeah.
Because
and that,
what is that for you, or what was it for you at that point?
You know, part of it was, you know, a rebellion, albeit ill thought out and misguided.
Sure. We don't
do
it beautifully.
Yeah, no, there was nothing beautiful about that process except for them kids. Outside of that, it was a wreck. It was trying to find my own way to do things. You know, like we were raised in a certain way. You know, there was a certain way of thinking. And
we were raised in the same religion.
Right. And it was, you know, and it's, I mean, and be clear, like I'm not angry about it. There's no dispersions. No. Like it is what it is.
Me either. We learned a lot of really amazing things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, like it's, for an example, I dated the same girl through most of high school.
Okay.
And we made a lot of really poor choices together. And I mean, poor. She was raised Catholic. And so it was, you know, that admonition from our religious leaders was, you know, you want to keep your relationships inside of the church. Right. So that you have parallel experiences and parallel goals and parallel, you know, whatnot. And that's, you know, partially that's kind of what triggered that thinking. Yeah, you know, okay. I thought, you know, okay, that it's logical. But then I thought, like, how many people or how many experiences or how many am I excluding by only being in this one lane, you know? And then there were people that we went to church with. We had a pianist at the church who was super cool. I loved her to death. Her husband was not part of the church. Okay. And, you know, I thought, gosh, like when she talks, you know, the way she spoke about him, you know, she always spoke about him with admiration and respect. And, you know, and I thought, how could that be bad? If that's what she gets out of this deal, and he kind of has his faith and she kind of has her faith, and like, how could
find a way to make it work?
Yeah. How could that be bad? And then it, you know, as I wandered, I had these moments where it didn't make sense. Like how do we have so much us and them? Like, how do we have, well, it's the Catholics, and then you've got the Jehovah's Witnesses, and you got the Mormons, and you got the Mennonites, and you got the Baptists, and you got the Pentecostals, and and the only thing that they all really agree on is that everybody else isn't quite right. They all kind of have the same faith, the same basic principles, but at the end of the day, it was kind of, well, but our way is actually the right way. And it didn't make sense. And then to go like socially, like I hung out mostly with kind of the redneck, hillbilly. Most of my friends their families were loggers, they were dairy farmers, they were that kind of a crowd. But I also had this other crowd through music that was they were very not that. I mean, I hung out with the Mexican kids. I hung out with kind of the white, whatever they were, whatever category they were in. I had, black friends. I had like all these different groups, and it's like, man, like I get something from all of them.
Like, I love that you lived in an area that provided that opportunity for you. Because where I live, there's less of that, or especially as I was growing up, it's becoming.
And we have more of that than like southeastern Idaho.
Yeah.
But really, like the real multicultural kind of thing is like 2 hours north or 2 hours south.
Okay.
Like where we are at was very predominantly white. Our high school was thrown into absolute chaos because they brought like 20 boys from a boys' home, like a halfway house kind of a deal that was overcrowded. They brought them down to our school. Okay. And God, did that cause social friction. Because that's not, none of us had ever lived with anything like that.
Sure.
And that caused it. It was a mess. But even that, like it kind of opened some venues to kind of look at things. Well, I don't have the only perspective. Like this crowd isn't the only crowd. There's other crowds that have their thing going on. And I had a guy that we sang in a couple of like select choirs together, and we did some quartets together and things like that. And I was hanging out with him, and he said, you are the blackest white guy I know. At first I was like, oh, thanks. Like, okay. And then later I thought, it's kind of a compliment, I guess. It's kind of a compliment. And, he would call me, for a while, he called me Cracker. Hey, Cracker, hey, white guy. We kind of joke. The racial tension, we kind of made jokes about it,
right.
Back in.
Right.
Then he came to school and he said, hey, crouton. I said, well, how the hell did I go from being a cracker to a crouton? Like, I don't see that that's an upgrade. And he said, no, a crouton is still a cracker. You just have some flavor. But that's kind of the time in my life where I kind of started to look around and, gosh, I'm very much attached to like outdoor culture, cowboy history. Like that's very much a part of who I am. I love it. I'm very attached to it. But it isn't the only thing that I enjoy. I enjoy my friends from other religions or other ethnicities or other backgrounds because they're not the same.
Yeah.
Because it adds some, it turns crackers into croutons, it adds some flavor,
Yep.
And it wasn't an intentional rebellion, I guess. Like it was kind of a dumb kid just kind of trying to figure out stuff on my own terms. You know, instead of being told it's this way, or, you know, your whole life is going to fall apart. And, you know, it's just, you know, it was more of me just wanting some space to breathe and
I was
make
say, kind of
my
like
own.
filling out your boundaries.
Yeah. You know, and it was really hard for me to quantify when I was younger, because I wasn't angry. It's not like I wasn't mad because people made me go to church. You know, do I shudder a little bit inside if I put on a white shirt and a button up shirt and a tie? A little, a little. But
Sure.
it's more of like, even that was a good example. Like, it was being told, well, you need to wear slacks and you need to wear a button up shirt and you need to wear a tie. Why? Like, I understand the concept of being well presented out of respect. Like, this is a place of respect. Like, okay, I understand that, and I can accept that. But if I wear some nicely pressed black Wranglers, how is that different than wearing a pair of slacks? You know, if my boots are clean, I mean, who cares what I'm wearing on my feet, right? Like, I'm at, you know, like, my perspective then was I'm at church, aren't I? Like, I could be somewhere else, but I'm here. So I didn't really, at that age, like, I didn't really grasp why the rest of it would matter. And that kind of fed that feeling of just like wanting everybody to step back. Now let me go make a mess on my own and come to my own conclusions.
Gotcha.
And you know, I did a lot of the church leadership stuff as a kid, a lot. I mean, a lot. And I really ruffled some feathers, and it wasn't my intention. I wasn't out to ruffle any feathers. I wasn't out to embarrass anybody. I was just kind of trying to get a point across, you know, and say, hey, like, maybe back up and make this an invitation more than a directive. And, you know, kind of see how that works for people. And that really ruffled some feathers with some folks. And that,
Sure.
you know, it wasn't my intention. I wasn't trying to be an outlaw. I was just trying to get some space to think.
I love it. Well, don't you think that, like, when we see kids acting out, I'm air quoting acting out, um, that very possibly could be what they're asking for as well. Is like, hey, I'm needing to get some of somebody's attention because I have some things that I'm feeling, or some things that I want to say, or I just have some questions, and the only way I can get attention is to act out. And so instead of a wise old man adult saying, oh my gosh, what's up? Like, I just noticed that your behavior is not really how you typically show up, or like, it's not getting you the best result. What's up? That instead we say, bad kid, bad kid. Like, you're
Yeah,
breaking the rules.
no, I mean, that no doubt that happens, and that happens. I mean, it's a spectrum, right? I mean, there are parents out there that are immediately just going to slap that back into line,
And
and
not
then
even just
there's
adults in
teachers, I
general.
mean, whatever, yeah, and then, you know, there's the other end of the spectrum where I feel like people not only there's kind of a spectrum where people not only allow space for that, but they almost kind of inadvertently encourage it. So that
So
now there's I think it muddies the water. I think there's a lot of kids that's what they're doing. They're looking for space. And then I think now socially we've come to a place where that's almost in vogue. So I think there's a lot of kids and people getting left behind because now it feels socially like being loud and being, you know, is kind of like what people do socially, like, and then kids are praised for it. And I think it muddies the water for the kids that's really what they're doing. And now we're overlooking them. You know, now we just say, oh, it's another loud, whiny kid. And it's hard to look at them and say, well, which ones really are kind of crying for help here and which ones are just kind of crying for attention. And to me, like, crying for help and crying for attention are different. You know, I don't for me, I don't quite see that as the same. I think socially, so I look at everything like an animal, right? Like, I think it's different. There's dogs that jump up on you because they strictly just want your attention, right? And in those cases, I'm not going to beat the dog. I'm going to make that behavior unpleasant and then show him a better way, right? Hey, if you need attention, instead of jumping on me, how about you come up and give me this other behavior? And I'll
Right.
acknowledge that behavior all day long. And then you got the other extreme of, it's an animal that is out of control. It's an animal that doesn't know how to contain itself. It's an animal that has problems. And that needs an entirely different approach. And so now I think we got a lot of young people that are getting lost because it all kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
So, you know, God bless the internet. It provides this connection where we can stay in touch. But I think it creates a lot of noise. Like, there's a lot of
Absolutely.
noise. And I think it especially for the young people, they get lost in it. So,
It's like what they know these days. I mean, even as an
yeah,
adult, it's
yeah,
super easy to like pick up your phone and get lost in whatever
yeah. Oh
platform or
God, yes. I do it.
or
Yeah, I mean, I chastise myself constantly. Like, dude, put the social media away. You got things to do. You got, put it away. It's really easy to just get lost in all the noise.
yep. Okay, so it sounds like you started having some your I want to be an old man experiences fairly young. Like you started getting
Mhm.
some big wake up calls and learning opportunities, and um, I would say you've handled them beautifully.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, I don't know all your stuff, and I would, I have a big container to listen to all of that, but I know that one of the things that is near and dear to you is still this idea of wanting to be an old man, but more than that, it's wanting to honor the stories of a different generation, and
Yeah, absolutely.
you see the value in those, and you want to bring them out. So like in these life experiences where now I mean, technically you're the old man. You
Right?
made
I
it.
mean,
Congratulations. Woo woo. You achieved what you set out to do.
right?
But now that you're in this space, and I love that you said I don't really have a like I'm grateful for my wife. She's got the education, she's got the plan, she's got the things, and she knows me enough to know that that style of things doesn't work for me, and she gives me space to just live in a way that feels more authentic. I'm gonna
Yeah,
generate income in a way that brings joy to my heart, and that when I come home at the end of the day, I have you have energy instead of like I've been
yeah,
out doing the job all day, um and she recognizes these things. I think it's such a beautiful thing, but in the recognition, like you have grown into how do I want to say this? Like you're in the old man stage. You're not an old man, but you're there technically in an 18-year-old
right.
old's eyes. But you're taking that a step farther, and you see the stories differently now, and because you hear them, you're the kind of
Yeah,
guy that will stop someone on the street and be like, hey, how are you? What How's your day? Like, you got a story? And
yeah,
so
yeah.
how now that you're here and you have this opportunity to share, tell me kind of what's up with you. What is it that you're wanting to bring forth? What are these next steps in this not planned existence that brings you joy and learning and education just through life experience?
Well, I think, like, part of the next part of the next steps is going to be kind of managing the flow, so to speak. Like, I really, for a long time, I have really, there's just kind of a nagging, gnawing voice, in the background that's, it's kind of saying, it's a constant reminder of like, hey, these things that you value are disappearing. Like they're leaving quickly. Lifestyles that I value, I feel like are disappearing quickly. The people, the really authentic people that created those lifestyles are disappearing quickly. And that's kind of something that I'm working on, is a way to preserve that.
So,
It's
just really quickly, I mean, I think I have a pretty good feel on like what the people, like who the people are. But
Mhm.
you also mentioned values and lifestyle. So, what are some of those values, and what is that lifestyle that you feel like is disappearing quickly that you're wanting to preserve and share out to people so that it does stick around?
I think it's like kind of the values, I guess, are values, and just like valuing people, like value, like one of my big regrets, like we've all got regrets, things that we learned too late to really do anything about it. Um, like one of my regrets, big regrets, is that I didn't ask Granddad more questions. That I didn't learn. I learned a lot from him. I didn't learn a lot about him.
Mm.
So, then when I tell people, I help somebody with their horses and they say, gosh, where did you learn that? So, it's a little something I picked up from my granddad, and they'll say something like, God, he must have been quite a person. What was he like? And I said, well, he was like not quite 5 feet tall, have got stuff to do and get out of the way. Like, I don't know. Like, what was his childhood like? I don't know. What was it like for him being a young father and trying to figure out like how to make that? I have no idea. I don't know. There's this person that I
Cory,
admire. I don't know
I
how he
think
got there.
I think he was a lot like you.
I genuinely believe that. I
He didn't.
think
He
if I look
learned
back at it,
by education and or education by way of life, and he worked hard.
you did. And if and when I look back at it, if I look at me and then my dad and then granddad, right? I look at it and I think, my boy, granddad was a pretty hard son buck.
He was
Like,
a badass.
there was the box, and you better be in the box. And if you're not in the box, we're going to find a way to put you there. And
Right.
then there was my dad, who kind of similar. Like, there's a lot of, my dad said things when I was a kid, and I was like, gosh, hi, Grandpa. Like, that came straight from your dad's mouth.
I've said that about my mother. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
And then I do it, and then I've caught myself doing it, where I've said things to my kids, and I'm like, gosh, hi, Dad, when did you get here? But when I look at it, like growing up, like as a kid, I always thought my dad was, gosh, he's kind of tough. He's kind of hard. Like, he's really got this one lane. On the flip side of it, my dad did stuff like he read, my mom would read us books before we went to bed at night, and if my mom was she went to night school for a while. So my dad would read some books to us. He's not capable of reading the words on the page. It won't happen. He's going to add voices. He's going to make it really silly. It
Your
was really
your
funny,
dad,
like
yes,
like
yes.
class clown kind of a thing. And that's something that's very in line with my personality. And then if I look back to Grandpa, like I can remember times where like he would say something, and I don't even have a specific example, but he would say something, and I remember it catching me because I'm like, did he just say that? Like, that was almost funny. Like, did he just say that? Like, that came from him. Or he warned me about doing something. I did it anyways. He watched me fail, and then like laughed at me. Like you could see like that sparkle, like, and I think that
Perfect
personality was
learning
there.
moment.
Yeah, I think that personality was there in him too. It was just, it was shaped differently by the time and the way that he was raised. And
Sure.
it shaped it a little bit differently for my dad, and it shaped it a little bit differently for me. But I definitely see that personality. You know, it's in a line. I think it was, you know, I mean, we all have great memories of grandpa on his impromptu pulpit.
Oh,
You know, I
yeah.
mean, the man could hold a sermon on any subject you'd like. And
Especially if
it
it
more
was human genealogy or horse genealogy
absolutely. Amen. And it's one of the
or
things when I looked
manners.
at old guys, yes, that's as a kid, that's one of the things that I always admired about him is it felt like everywhere grandpa went, like he would talk and people listened.
Yeah.
Well, he would kind of have this sermon and people would shut down and listen. And I, as a kid, I was like, man, like this little dude is powerful because he just opens his book, you know, and just exudes this knowledge, and people are just soaking it up. And it,
Yep.
you know, it's one of those things about him that, like, gosh, like that was really cool. And then as an older teen, early 20s, you know, I thought, gosh, that guy had quite an ego. Gosh, he really felt a lot, you know, he
Right.
really thought highly of himself to think that everybody wants to sit and listen to him. And then I found myself doing the same thing. I found myself like being invited to teach at horsemanship clinics or, you know, that sort of a deal. And at the end of the day, I'm like, gosh, I'm tired. I'm wiped out. I did nothing but talk all day. But man, I'm tired. And not only am I tired, I feel satisfied.
Right.
Like I feel like some sort of calling has been fulfilled. Like that was, and you know, and people would say, like, gosh, I couldn't get up there and do that. I couldn't go up there and talk in front of all those people. You know, I thought, why?
I love
It's
it.
not hard. Like you just go up there and you just, you know, you go up there and do the thing you do. Like
Right. You
I
open
think
your
that was,
mind and your heart and you let inspiration
yeah, you
speak
just
all
let
the
it
things that
fall
you've
out.
been. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was, I think like for granddad, I think that was kind of his purpose. I think that was, you know, that was his purpose was to be, he was a beacon of some sort. You know, I mean, he was his own sort of light that drew a lot, you know, it drew a lot of people in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it it almost feels kind of arrogant to say it that way, but it kind of feels like that's where I'm going. You know, it feels like I've tried all these different little things that I'm good at. They're things that I'm
Sure.
talented at, I'm good at, I can make money at it. They're things that I feel good about because yeah, I charge for this service. It's something that it comes easy for me. It's something I do. Everybody comes out of it feeling good. You know, I feel good because I got to help somebody. They feel like their money was well spent. They got what they wanted. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Um, but it's starting to go a different way. And that's kind of, it's a long way around getting back to that next step question is that kind of seems like that's where that step is going is somehow finding a way to take that talking to people and that collecting history and stories and values and somehow find a way to put that in a package.
Did you decide you're going to do that as a podcast or you're going to do that as a
I don't, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Um, for me personally, if I don't like it, if I don't enjoy it, it's probably not something that I'm going to do.
that?
Because I mean, I'm that guy. If I don't get up in the morning and I'm not excited about doing it, I'm probably not going to do it.
I hear you.
You know, so like podcasts for me are kind of hit and miss. There's some podcasts I really enjoy. I can't say I enjoy them enough that I follow them. I mean, there's
Sure.
something like, you know, if I've got a long drive or something, oh, there's this podcast I like. I'll check out what they got going on, that kind of a thing.
So is it video? Is it books? Is it?
To me, it's probably going to end up being something video. The visual part of it works for me.
Yeah.
Like podcasts. Podcasts to me are like talking to somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
There's no expression. There's no, like, you're missing one dimension of the conversation. Like, so to me, the video part of it kind of seems more suited to me, I guess.
Yeah. Me too.
I found somebody that I've met through horse stuff that is doing some production, some editing, some visual media, like that kind of stuff. So we've kind of opened a conversation on how we could, sort of build a relationship there and kind of get that going. And
So you and I had a conversation, a month or so ago. Maybe it's
right.
been longer than that. How long are you going to keep waiting?
It's an excellent question.
So are you just going to pull out your damn phone and go interview someone? Damn, let's do this.
Yeah, that's close to what's going to happen. That's close. My wife is amazing. I've talked to her about this stuff before, and so she has ordered me a camera. Just kind of a basic video camera. I've played with it a couple of times. Technology is a little intimidating for me. It's not really my thing, but
same here.
We're going to figure it out. I've got some people kind of in mind that I would like to go talk to. Like my Nana. Like after my mom's mom passed away, Grandpa remarried. I personally believe the man he married an angel. She's amazing. She is someone that I would really like to go sit down with and talk to. She's 89 years old, sharp as a tack. She's somebody I'd really like to go sit down and just, talk. Just kind of get those. I've got kind of a short list of people that, kind of dip your toe in the water, kind of go test it out, kind of see how it works.
Yeah. So when can we? I'm totally pushing you here. When can we expect to be able to watch that? And remember, Cory, we talked about this, and this is something I remind myself often. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to do something.
Right. And that's a life lesson that is constantly kicking me in the face right now. Is
we were taught perfection, buddy.
Yeah, just do it.
We were taught perfection. And so this is me reminding you of our conversation to just go do it.
Yeah. That's
doesn't matter if you know how to use your camera, with all of its fanciness, just point and shoot and turn the darn thing on.
Right. That's it. That's where we're at.
I love it. And I love that you're allowing me to just kind of push you a little bit. I've been in those places too, and I'm grateful for the people who I still have to be reminded sometimes, just put something out there. Yeah. Just get that ball rolling. And so this is me just reminding you, just because I love you and because I love what you're doing, and this concept of sharing the stories of our elders, like holding on to that history and hanging on to the values and the people that we love, and not letting our head and the perfectionism get in the way. So this is just me reminding you, I'm waiting. And now there's going to be lots of people waiting.
Right now, look what you've done. Good grief.
I know. And Man Cub, you got to share the Man Cub stories. Like, go back to your stinking Facebook and put those things, like, you got to write that crap out. That stuff is so amazing. I love how you take just life and you spin it in a way that is just like, wow.
Right. Wow. And I've got a lot of people that have been nagging me to put the Man Cub put the man cub stories in a book or as something, and it almost seems foreign to me. Like the man cub stories there was no real intent there. It was my way to
That's the
deal with
best,
this kid and not kill him.
right?
Is find a way to make it funny.
That's the best part about it, is that it's totally wholehearted and genuine. Just like a dad living the experience of having a wild feral child,
Right? A man cub.
a man cub, who like when I read that stuff, I was like, wow. It was heartwarming, and the fact that you allowed it to happen, you allowed him to have that space, even though it was like for you. You had the sense of mind and your own life experience enough to give him the room
Yep.
to have the lessons and figure that stuff out on his own. And damn, like what a lucky kid. What a lucky kid. And the rest of us want to hear those stories. And P.S., I know people who can help you.
Well, there's going to be we'll have another conversation soon.
Okay. All right. We're at an hour and 16. We probably should wrap this baby up.
Goodness.
What would be, I know we could talk forever. What would be 3 just pieces of wisdom that you would leave our viewers / listeners with, that you live by now or that you've picked up along the way?
I think really it would be just I really encourage people to chase the dopamine. If it makes you happy, if it's something that you look forward to, allow that. Go do that. The other it's kind of 2 and 3 together that has been kind of a theme for me recently is be the person that you wanted. I have no animosity towards my parents at all. None. They did their dead level best with what they had. For me, 20 years different, raising an 8-year-old then, raising an 8-year-old now. That's kind of what I try and do for him. Is be what I wanted then.
Gotcha.
And I think that plays out in a lot of different areas. So if that was something that you wanted, that you felt like you needed, be that. Because you obviously know something about it. You obviously know what it looks like, or you wouldn't have known that you wanted it.
Right.
Go be that. Chase the dopamine. Go do the things you love. Be the person that you were looking for. Because it's probably who you already are. And that, I don't really have a third one. I think those 2 take up all my time.
I love it. I tell hold on. A story of performing and being excited to perform, because it meant that I could, when I stepped on that stage and I picked up that microphone, I got to be somebody different.
Yeah.
And then one day I realized I wasn't being somebody different. I was actually stepping into all or more of who I was. And that was a really big eye opener. So I appreciate those 2/3 little tidbits. And I would say to people too, if you think you're stepping into a different personality, you're probably just really stepping into more of who you are.
Probably not. Yep.
And I love your statement, chase the dopamine. That's what I would probably, when I say live alive,
Yeah.
chase those things and have those experiences and do the things that create happiness and bring more of it into your life. So,
yeah.
My gosh, Cory, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, happy to do it.
We'll let's touch base again and see when we can bring your first little episode to everyone else.
We'll get that done. Don't worry. We'll get on it.
I know you will. And for those of you who are out there, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for hanging with us for a little bit longer than normal and just just really feeling with us and feeling into the flow that came from this and the yumminess that we really just kind of sank into, especially in the second half of this thing. It's not always easy to come to a platform and be asked one question and to allow yourself to really jump in and like fill it out. And it's really fun for me to watch how our guests just settle in, and then the wisdom and the stories just start to come. So this has been fun for me. I would love to hear what you enjoyed from this episode, what you're going to take from it, and maybe what some of your similar experiences were. What are the values that you want to preserve? What are the lifestyles that you're wanting to share with people, and what they mean to you? And with that, remember to go check us out on Facebook, in the Facebook group, The Righteous Rebels. Hit the bing join button and we'll let you in. There's so much yumminess going on there, and we would love for you to be a part of it. It's also the place that we share the upcoming events and activities that we're doing. Again, you can find information on how to get the books. You can get information on how to get yourself on the boat for the river trip in August, and you want to be on the boat. I'm telling you, it's going to be one hell amazing experience. We have a world-class crew. This is an all-female trip. Our guides are all female. There is so much energy. Like they say, it's equal to the Grand Canyon and more. Oh my gosh, I don't want to take more time, but I do. Go to the webpage, therighteousrebels.com, and find that information, and then reach out if you got to reach out anyway, because that's how you're going to get in the boat. But until then, remember to continue being amazing and showing up for yourself and for others who are around you. And be bold, be brave, be a rebel. We'll see you soon.